Hello and welcome back to another Cabincast Ramble. I'm Oliver and I'm joined by Tan.
Hello.
And we are here with more Steven Universe. This time we have Crack the Whip, which
that was last time.
This time we have Steven versus Amethyst, which leads on directly.
Yes.
We did Crack the Whip.
We did Crack the Whip last time. And in that one we had the beginning of this sort of big plot part.
We did.
Steven versus Amethyst is the sort of the culmination, at least for a little while, because we have an interruption from Bismuth next episode.
We do.
In which we understand Amethyst's insecurities.
Indeed.
We don't treat them until after Bismuth.
No.
But in the last episode, Steven and Connie fought Jasper at the beach as Stevonnie after Amethyst got poofed by Jasper at the very same time.
Yep. That's what happened.
And Jasper runs away. And this, takes place directly after.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the end of the last episode, Steven and Connie are running. And I guess Connie, leaves at some point.
Yeah.
To go home, which is fair, I suppose.
Understandably. Yeah.
And Pearl and Garnet return. And
they do.
Obviously, they've also been looking for Jasper, but they have no idea that Steven and Connie have been literally fighting them only a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And sort of Steven recaps that last episode, and Pearl's super proud of Steven because, of course, Steven's done really well. Proved a lot.
He has.
And then we pan to Amethyst, and she's not looking super happy. And of course, she did also reform.
She did.
She did a new outfit, a white tank top instead of a black one, I believe, or is it instead of a grey one?
I've seen it so many times through that I don't know which outfit's when, and if it's a new one or it's an old one. Honestly, they all just look like outfits that Amethyst wears, and that's about all I have.
So it was a black tank top that was fairly sort of clean, and then now it's like a white one that's got some rips to it.
It does.
Which might symbolize something.
It might. It might.
It may do.
It might. It might not, but it might. So anyway.
But yeah, she insists that she's fine.
She does. Because that's the healthy thing to do.
As we know from every time this happens, earlier and later on in the series.
And in life and in other shows.
And in life and in other shows.
When people say they're fine.
Oh boy. Obviously for Amethyst it is not. It's not easy to say that she isn't fine. She's got an appearance as she's the laid back one.
Yeah.
She's not meant to be not fine.
No. But yeah, training. Pearl.
Training. We get some training.
Steven, which is always cool.
Exactly.
Amethyst is just putting eggs down the sink.
As you do, yeah.
Which, the American thing, right? Because we don't have death blades in our sinks.
No, I don't recall having a sink that goes. "Brrr."
Because yeah, no, in America, it's like you have sinks that have like not actually literal death blades, but they have like shredders or something in. I've got to look this up actually because it's one of those things. Yeah, the garbage disposal. Designed for small table scraps when you're doing the dishes. Wouldn't handle a bottle or paper, but yeah. So okay, to the second thing, it's a garbage disposal is a little machine which is essentially a whirling blades of death. So I guess it's just because the idea is you can put everything in and it just destroys all the little scraps that go through at the same time, along with all the water. Whereas in the UK, we, usually in sinks these days have things that stop all the little stuff, so you can just put it in the bin.
We've got like a little
Um,
catcher.
yeah, exactly. Which seems less potentially dangerous to human life, but
And we also have Mr. Muscle sink and drain remover.
we do. We also have plugs with 3 sockets instead of two, though. So as a
Ooh.
general rule, safety's I don't know household safety. I mean, there's also some much bigger, broader, obvious topics that you could also mention. But yeah, so um, Amethyst is wasting food and potentially damaging household appliances, uh, which isn't anything news for Amethyst, but she doesn't seem to be taking much enjoyment out of it,
No.
which shouldn't
Stephen
bode
invites her to
well.
go and watch
He
watch him
does.
train.
Yeah, he doesn't really seem to clock on to how Amethyst's behaving either.
Not just
Um,
yet.
not just yet. He'll get there, strangely enough.
And
Um,
obviously this reflects his perspective, which he says later on is that he sort of expects the gems to be very, very receptive to like his improvement and success.
yeah,
So
exactly.
like they're sort of his parents. So
Yeah.
he's like expecting them to be
Mhm.
enthusiastic about any gains that he makes. But at the moment, Amethyst isn't.
Amethyst isn't a parent. Amethyst is the older sibling who's now feeling self-conscious because she's going to be replaced.
Exactly. That's sort of what a
Um,
lot of this is about.
yeah,
Amethyst has big ol' self-esteem issues at the moment.
indeed. Which I was going to say touched on, but we didn't touch on. We discussed quite heavily last time.
We discussed
Um,
indeed.
indeed. Because yeah, like we said before, Amethyst and Steven, compared to Garnet and Pearl, aren't actually that different. You've got Pearl, who's been with Rose the longest. We don't know that entire story yet, but we know that that's true. Then you get Ruby and Sapphire become Garnet, who are then also with Rose for less time, but still a long time. And then the war happens, then the war ends, and then you get Garnet. No, that's not right. Then you get
Amethyst.
Amethyst after the war from Earth, like Steven, also after the war. Granted, still much, much older, but still also doesn't feel like a part of the Crystal Gems. And now you've got this child who, again, just wasn't at the war, hasn't been around for hundreds of thousands of years like you have, or however long it is, like this track, but is also Rose's son.
Six
And
thousand years.
suddenly, 6 hours, yeah, there you go. And then suddenly it's like, well, as soon as he starts to be doing better, of course he's going to be put on the pedestal because he's the son of Rose, and that makes him better than me.
Cause
Um,
nepotism.
because nepotism, which is not the case at all. If anything, it just sucks more for Steven in the long run, as we'll get to. Um,
Yeah.
and to be fair,
Yeah.
I imagine in real life there are situations where nepotism is just bad for everyone involved rather than good. Or maybe there's a different word for that. But
Of course,
uh,
Amethyst doesn't see that kind of pressure that
no,
Stephen's facing, and Stephen
indeed.
doesn't see that kind of the sort of inferiority complex, I guess, or the
Exactly.
self-esteem issues.
Yeah, like because often with older siblings, you never stop looking up to them unless they do something really dumb or stupid, I suppose. But like you
Hmm.
never really stop looking up to your older siblings. Even if you know, because usually they have a large part to play, just like your parents do in your upbringing and your life, and sometimes in ways that your parents can't. And there will be times, obviously, in certain families, certain situations where younger siblings go on and do things that your older siblings haven't done. And if you're a younger sibling, you might be like, "Oh, well, it's great. I've gone and done this thing." and it's all thanks to obviously myself, but also mum and dad and so for doing that. And they might look at me and just be like, "Oh, well, they're better than me now. They don't need me anymore." But no one communicates these things, which is the underlying issue. And that's how we end up with situations like this.
Yeah, and what we get in this episode
Yes, that was
is
quite the tangent. Bring it back, Tam.
very much a lot of unhealthy ways of coping. We
Yes.
don't get to the sort of the good ways of coping until later.
Hmm.
This whole episode is very much like bad decisions,
Hmm.
which might seem like it's the recipe for an episode that is not very good, but I like it
Yeah.
because it delves into them and recognizes them as bad decisions.
Hmm.
Um, so we get number one bad decision. We get this cool training scene
We do.
in which Amethyst decides to join in on the training. Pearl
Hmm.
says that the positive reinforcement of Pearl points have
Works
been
wonders for Stephen.
working really well for Steven. Yeah,
Hmm.
and of
Yeah,
course she wants in.
of course. Seeing it as
Um,
a quick, yet strong, fast kind of method,
yeah,
which
of
is
course not every method of training works equally for everyone, but
no.
it's good to give it a go.
Hmm.
And the first mistake here is that they put them up against each other. Not to know it at the time, but that is of course only going to feed
Hmm.
that inferiority complex or resentment. Because if one of
Indeed.
them loses, then of course they're going to feel worse.
Of course. Some people work really well with competition. Stephen and Connie probably would work really well with competition because they're naturally competitive with each other, but in a playful sense.
Hmm.
Again, Stephen, it's fine. Amethyst, no.
No, it doesn't
As
quite
we
work.
as we know historically, not just in competition, but just in general with giving things and taking them, um, Amethyst's horrendous at that.
Hmm.
See the episode with Peridot that I forgot the name of.
Which one?
Uh, the one where she berates Peridot the whole episode and teases her and jokes about her, and then Peridot makes a joke back, and suddenly it's like, oh no, whoa, Peridot, you can't
Oh,
say that.
too far.
Too far, yeah, you've gone too far. Did she really? No, compared to what the Amethyst was doing, but some people can take the jokes and some people can't. Some people can enjoy friendly competition, and Amethyst is not those people.
Don't dole out what you can't receive.
Yeah, basically, but also it's a lot more complicated than that, and we discussed that in that episode.
Of
Um,
course, we did indeed.
and yeah,
Probably.
it's a part of. Yeah, I'm just assuming we did. But I don't know. I have faith in us. But yeah, Amethyst likes to tease people and make jokes at their expense. Again, in a playful manner, but still, if it's to the wrong person, that can still hurt. And Amethyst is the wrong person because again, she does not have the self-esteem. Uh, whereas Peridot does not understand the jokes that are being made at her expense, so it didn't really count. Um, I suppose is the
Yeah,
thing.
she just thought she was making people laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, so like you say, putting Amethyst against Steven is not a good plan. But even here, like Steven, it's like, oh, positive reinforcement's great. Cool, I want in. Steven's still really like into it and really excited and raring to go. Amethyst still couldn't care less.
She's still looking a little bit.
She still looks tired, she still looks bored,
Yeah, but
which
that's
is like
kind of Amethyst, you know.
it's kind of Amethyst, but also like you gotta be motivated for these things.
It's true. A sort of get strong quick scheme does require effort.
Yeah, you still gotta be involved in the scheme.
Yeah,
Uh, but
but
obviously as soon as we start with the thing,
the
uh
actual competition, um, Steven starts winning,
Steven starts winning.
and Pearl notes like, ooh, you
It
know,
would be it would have not been as bad if Pearl did not say what Pearl said, which is great thinking, Amethyst, losing to him on purpose to make him feel better about himself.
Yeah.
Which is just on
Oof.
multiple levels, because it's like on the one level, like, no, I'm not doing that, so ow. And on another level, you still think I should be better than him. Like I
Yeah.
think, but I'm not. So it's even worse.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Pearl isn't cognizant of this at the
No,
moment,
not at all.
but and she's saying it because she thinks that Amethyst is really good.
Yeah,
Because she thinks that she has a really high opinion of Amethyst
yeah.
and her skill.
But that, backfires, unfortunately, in this situation.
A lot of things said out of love to someone with low self-esteem
Can
can
be
hurt,
seen as, negatives,
and
or
we'll
be
get a lot of that
misconstrued.
in
Yes,
the
that
rest of this
will
episode.
continue to happen, unfortunately.
We get number 2, which
We
is
do.
Dodging,
Yeah.
and Amethyst dodges well, and then Stephen dodges also very well.
Yeah.
Um, although Pearl seems to judge that as a Stephen victory. I'm not quite sure what the metrics were, but I suppose
Amethyst dodges, Steven dodges and also defeats, maybe?
maybe.
He also,
Then only one went for Amethyst.
yeah, I don't know. It's a 10-minute episode. We're gonna do so much.
Yeah, and then Pearl says pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes Amethyst feel worse.
Yep, and also Steven is just naturally kind of a celebrator.
Yeah,
Good
he
at
is.
celebrating,
He doesn't mean to rub it in.
which again can be fine. It's the kind of thing that, if it was him against Connie, would be endearing and be just fun teasing. But yeah, against Amethyst, with how Amethyst is right now, is less good.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never blame Stephen
No,
for
no,
being
not at
happy
all.
that he won.
I mean, I wouldn't blame like Steven for anything that happens in this, nor Pearl for anything that happens in this, because they lack the context that we have.
Yeah, like maybe if you knew that someone was feeling really bad about themselves and you were like, "Yeah, I
Yeah,
won, take
exactly.
that,"
Exactly. At that point,
I'd be like,
you've either
okay,
misread the situation or are just being a bit
bit
of an
of a
idiot,
jerk.
a bit of a jerk. But yeah,
But if you're like genuinely
yeah, happy you
celebrating
won.
a good time, that someone else feeling bad
Yeah,
shouldn't affect that.
exactly.
But at the same time, of course,
Hmm.
she's still feeling bad.
Yeah,
And so we get to the final round, uh, in which they're battling the Hollow Pearls.
it's again as training goes. I've got to be honest. Like Pearl, this doesn't seem very good. Um, it's like run to a thing, but against each other. Dodge things, but against each other. Fight things, but against each other, but also teamwork. Like I don't know. It because what immediately happens is Amethyst's just like angry and wants to win and goes ragefully charging after one of them and just leaves the others to Steven.
Yes, it does leave 4 to him and 1 to Amethyst. And we get that sort of the Amethyst victory that we got in Crack the Whip, pretty much, where she it does take a little while,
Yeah,
but she does manage it in the end, and that's sort of her style, is that
yeah,
it's kind of lax, but does manage it in the end.
yeah. She, she won't give up, except when she gives up. But she won't
Yeah.
give up. From a fighting non-emotional standpoint. Um,
Hmm.
she will keep going until, well, either she gets poofed or she wins. But that means that she just has tunnel vision for this one thing. Um, and she's like, "Stop moving so I can win." It's like this thing's barely moving, Amethyst.
Yeah, it shows that sort of animation of the
Yeah,
horror pole just sort of like barely
just
dodging.
slowly backing up. And it's
Yeah.
just like because she's completely unfocused and just yeah, focused, and she finally gets it.
She
But
does.
Stevens regained control of the situation and just expands the shield to make the things fly up in the air, and then yeets them with the shield, and again wins. Um,
Beats 4-1.
yeah, and the Amethyst could totally have done that. She's got two whips. She could have at least whipped two of them immediately, but she just went charging off after one of them and left Steven to deal with the rest, and Steven wins.
She was sort of blinded by her own emotion.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't agree with that sort of Jedi mindset in that you need to remove all emotion. But sometimes in a fight, having blinded by your emotions is not always a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, and not to get too much of a Star Wars sidetrack here, but like there's clear advantages to using emotion, um, and the issue that the Jedi have in the prequels is that they're like, well, all emotion is bad, and you should feel none of it, and this is clearly the way, and then it's like, huh, turned out that didn't quite work. Um,
And that's what
uh,
that's what part of the not sequels, but the original trilogy are about.
Well, exactly, yeah, and to an extent, the sequels too. But it's the idea of this doctrine of have no attachments, and it's like, well, you know, no. Luke goes back to Cloud City instead of completing his training to save Leia and Han
Exactly.
because it's love. He doesn't kill. Spoilers for Episode 6 of Star Wars, I suppose. Darth Vader in the end because of love instead of hate. And it's like you still use emotions.
Yeah,
But Episode 1 when Qui-Gon gets killed and Obi-Wan just becomes rageful, he just gets angry and it plays right into Darth Maul's hands because if you're weaponizing emotion, then the people who do it all the time are going to be much more effective. And it's only when he calms himself that he becomes, a better fighter again. But here, which is, the point that we're actually getting at, Amethyst is just rage and focus on wanting to win, which is just overpowering her ability to think logically. And Steven's just much more calm and collected.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we get to the next scene.
We do, where Steven is now, however, starting to notice
Stephen has noticed at this point, yeah.
that Amethyst does not seem okay.
Yeah. And so he invites her to join him playing the old Lonely Blade
Lonely
game.
Blade.
Uh which sort of looks like, Street Fighter or something.
Yeah, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat kind of thing.
And he invites her to play it and then sort of throws the game.
Yeah, he intentionally loses
Yeah. In order to try and
to
because
try and
that's
make her
his
feel
sort of
better.
idea of what might help here.
Hmm.
And it doesn't help. That's mistake number 2. Um,
He slightly overdoes it.
he does overdo it a bit.
Is the issue?
He goes like, "Oh dang, what's a health bar?"
Yeah. Yeah, which is like, come on, Steven. We know that you know these things. Also, he's wearing some kind of jester hat for some reason.
Was the
Um,
prize from the Pearl Prize
that's what
pouch,
it was.
presumably.
I must have. Yeah, that makes sense contextually. Absolutely. That's why he's wearing it. But yeah, he makes it way too obvious that he's just letting her win.
Very, very obvious. If you want to
I've,
do that,
I was
you've
gonna
got
say,
to
have you
be
ever
a bit
played a
more
game
careful.
with someone and made them win, or let them win to make them feel better?
You need to be good at it in
Yeah,
order to do it subtly.
yeah. Have you ever done that?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I don't know that I have. But I don't know if I've had many situations where I could have done either. Because as a person who does not like competitive things because I am a very competitive person, uh, if I am forced into something competitive, I will just be trying to win, and that's pretty much it. um,
I I sort of for example, Okay, I'm good at racing games, and not a lot of people in my sort of circle play them as much as I do.
No.
So maybe I'll I'll just ease off a bit,
Yeah. Exactly.
And maybe I'll just sort of I'll stay close. So it looks like I'm always going for it, and it makes it more interesting for me as well. I don't want to just be like rocketing off. That's boring on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's just like, obviously I'm still playing with skill.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it, a bit easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I'll lift off a bit earlier in the corners.
Yeah. I mean, I did remember that we were having a talk with one of our friends one time. And they're like, "Oh yeah," and I kept winning, and you're like, "Yeah, damn, it was you're just really good." And then they left, and you're like, "Yeah, I was letting them win." But I didn't want to. I didn't want to bring that up if you weren't going to bring it up. But
I don't remember that one exactly, but
yeah,
I believe you.
They seemed very proud, of their win streak. And I was like, "I thought you were really good at racing games." You're like, "Oh yeah, no, I am," but it didn't sound anywhere near this egotistical as I'm making it sound. But in a nutshell, um, yeah, basically. But Stephen is not a master of this.
It does sometimes. Backlash. Yesterday, I was
Yes.
I was playing some racing games with Dan, and I sort of at the start of the race, I would sort of stay behind and not pass,
Mm.
and then I'd like make a mistake, and then I just would try my hardest to catch up, and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Because he's like genuinely really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's won 4 in a row, and I was genuinely trying.
Like, huh. This is the bit where you get like Pearl coming, but like, "Great job, Tan." Losing intentionally to make it feel like they're better.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's going on. Um, oh dear. But yeah, Amethyst, like you weren't even trying. Come on, what are you doing?
Yeah. And then Stephen, he says, "I'm sorry, I was trying to make you feel better," and that sets Amethysts off because it's like, well, that's also like maturity. That shows maturity to some extent, and
Great, you've won at
that's
maturity.
one of
Damn it,
the other
Stephen.
things that I'm self-conscious about.
Yeah. And
Um,
now Stephen gets understandably upset because he's like, "But you wanted me to get better. Now I've got better, and now you're angry at me that I'm better?"
Yeah, and it's kind of an understandable reaction from
It
Stephen
is.
because he's not really encountered this kind of low self-esteem before.
No. And he's still a kid too, so.
He's still a kid as well. And obviously Amethyst is the sort of person who really doesn't want to unload her problems onto a kid, which we see later in the show.
Yeah.
But I guess at this point it just sort of all comes out without her wanting to, because she sort of snaps.
She's like, "It's not that I'm mad at you, it's that I'm mad at myself, and it's" what's the word?
And it's
Manifesting as if it's anger at you, and it's not. And
it's what it looks like,
yeah.
but it isn't. And that's sometimes hard to get across.
Yeah.
And we get what is unfortunately, it's made to seem like it's sort of a good way of coping with it, or like a healthy argument. But this whole bit where Stephen and Amethyst are talking here is very much the opposite of what I think you should do. Is that when someone says, "No, I'm not very good," isn't to say, "Oh yeah, well, I'm worse."
That's not, yeah. How like, like pointing out things that people do better than you is fine. But yeah, that's not what's going on here.
Pointing out things that people are good at is fine, but you
Yeah.
shouldn't compare them to yourself. Because firstly, what you're doing there is you're sort of derailing the conversation to be about your own self-esteem issues as well, which
Could be.
is separate.
It could
But
be.
also, you're encouraging comparison, which is the worst creator of self-esteem issues. Is
That is very
comparison.
true. That is very true. I don't know. I feel like if handled correctly, pointing out to someone when they're really good at something and you're not can not be a negative. That made sense. But it's very difficult to do, and this is absolutely a prime example of how not to do that.
This is absolutely a prime example of what not to do, because Amethyst, what she's saying there is that I'm not good at things because I'm angry at
Yeah.
myself.
Mhm.
So Stephen says, "No, you're better than me because you have whips and a dash."
Yeah.
Amethyst says,
Well, you've got
"Well, hold on a
bubble and
second. You've got a lot cooler things." And then
floating and
Stephen
shield.
says, basically accepts that,
Yeah.
because he says floating. I forget to use that half the time. He
Yeah.
accepts that those things are better,
Yeah.
but then defends by moving on to a different one.
Yeah.
And it's
And
it's just not a good
it's
decision.
that absolutely is not. Uh yeah.
But we get a way to work through those feelings.
Mhm.
It's fighting. They're
It's
gonna fight.
worse. Again.
Um,
Yeah, Steven's like, "I approve, you fight me."
Fight me. I'll prove
Um
to you that I'm the worst.
yeah, it's an
And
odd
I guess,
situation.
as in a lot of shows, a lot of cartoon shows, and a lot of anime,
Mhm.
a fight is a conversation.
It is. Yes.
It is an exploration of two people's ideals and their
Mhm.
beliefs. And
Indeed.
so, in the context of a cartoon, a fight can be an effective way of working through certain emotions. I'm not sure it
This is not that.
is. This is not that. And obviously, in real life, I would suggest not fighting people because you can get injured quite badly.
Yeah.
For Amethyst and Steven, that's okay because Steven heals himself immediately, and Amethyst is a gem.
Yep.
So for them, fighting, I guess, is a way they could work through it. Not that I'd recommend it, but I guess
Mhm.
it's fine. And so they do. They fight.
The issue, however, is that they're still going with this whole "well, I suck" mentality through the whole thing. Uh, Amethyst does some really great stuff, and it's really great. And Steven's like, "Ah, damn, no, I'm losing. It's bad." And then she's like, "No, what? I'm bad." And then he gets the bubble, and then she throws the bubble into the pillars, and then he makes a spike bubble. And she's like, "Wait, is that you? Is that new? Because that's really cool." And I'm not sure if it's new, but it's
I think
definitely
the spike
newish.
bubble's new,
Spike bubble's new. There we go. It's a new. And Steve was like, "No, it's an accident. And accidents don't count as being awesome."
which is very much not true.
Yeah.
First of all, and second of all, since Amethyst's fighting style is often very loose,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of revolves around accidents a lot of the time,
Yeah, exactly.
which
Happy
probably
accident.
doesn't help.
No. And then our fist almost gets crushed. But it's
Yep,
fine because Steven saves her. But that's not fine.
that's not fine. That's not what she wanted at that particular time. Kind of once again
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to bring it up again, My Hero Academia,
Yep, that's fair.
because Bakugo uh, really hates being saved because it makes him feel
Mm-hmm.
like that person is looking down on him, and
Sure.
it's the same here.
Yes. And then she starts complaining about this and then gets hit on the head with the shield.
Yes, which is
It's like
quite amusing.
it's quite amusing and seems like you'd think that that was on purpose, but it was a fluke. Um, and then she becomes Purple Puma and tries to hit him again, but he jumps and floats up in the air
Yep,
and gets a bit lost because he starts floating and loses control. And then Amethyst instantly saves him.
exactly. She does when she's not focusing on her anger,
Yeah,
right, and like fighting in this emotional state.
yeah.
She like immediately grapples Stephen
She does.
with perfect
Yeah,
accuracy.
it's great. And then she's concerned about Steven, but then Steven's fine, and so she's like, "See, I dropped you from the sky, and look,
Yeah,
you're fine."
she like literally yeets him directly into the
She does.
ground,
It's pretty
forming
great.
like a crater.
Mhm.
That's pretty brutal
It
for
is.
anyone but Stephen.
It is. Yeah.
And you can see because her tone of voice has been aggressive this whole time,
Mhm.
but when she asks whether Stephen's okay,
Yeah.
she's like,
She's concerned.
Stephen?
Yeah.
But then he's okay. He goes like wah
You're
and
not even
pushes
trying.
big old bit of debris,
Mhm.
like almost hits Amethyst. And then Amethyst reveals all. If
Mhm.
I can't beat you, I'm never gonna beat Jasper, which is what she wants to do because she knows that Jasper is like her.
Yeah.
Rose has told Amethyst that she can be anything, or at least that's allegedly
Mhm.
um, the case from what Amethyst said to Jasper in the last episode.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't, to Amethyst, it doesn't seem like she will be able to beat Jasper.
Mhm.
And they're like really tired at this point. They try and lift up rocks, they try and
Mhm.
punch each other, and it doesn't work. And they punch each other and sort of flop over onto the
They
floor next to
don't
each
even
other.
punch each other. They completely miss.
They completely miss.
Yeah. They go to punch each other and just floop and fall over and kind of all the tension's gone now and they're just kind of laughing it off, which is good.
They laugh it off, yeah.
But yeah,
And then
Steve
Amethyst,
Amethyst talks about how, Rose says she can be anything and she's not sure she can.
she's not sure she can. This is, at its core, it's about disability,
Yeah.
right? Amethyst is not, or the supposed normal
Mhm.
is that an amethyst is supposed to be strong and not small.
Mhm.
But amethyst is small,
Yep.
and so she's like supposedly not normal.
Yep.
And even if out of love, people say like, no, no, that's not true. You can do anything.
Mhm.
That's not what they want to hear because, well, they might
Because
know that they can't.
yeah.
It's like, you know, um, going like, I don't know, up to someone who's missing a leg and going, yeah, you can be just as good at running as a
Mhm.
normal person, and that is hurtful because you're saying like you're using the word normal person there,
Yep.
and you're saying that like they can be just as good as in
Mhm.
like despite their disability, but it's what they should be saying is that not like not we think you're cool because of what you can do.
Yeah.
It's we think you're cool because of what you are.
Yeah.
It's not Amethyst. We think you're cool, even though we think you can beat Jasper because
Despite.
that's not true. Despite
Yeah.
your smallness, it's
Yeah. Exactly.
we just think you're cool as you are, Amethyst.
Yeah.
That's what it should be.
Absolutely. And it's like because yeah, like with your example, having losing a leg or not having a leg, however you come to being a leg.
Might have been a crude example. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, like, but like, there are, we see there's so many power athletes at this point, who are incredible, incredible runners. Just to take the basic leg example, they've got one
Sure,
leg
yeah.
or no legs, and they can still do it. It's like it's not impossible a lot of the time to still try and do things if you really are motivated to do it. But that's up to a person, and it's more you don't need, I think, at least, if you've set your mind to something, then it's good to have people motivating you.
Yeah. I
Um,
think, like, a person with one leg is never going to be good at two-legged running because they don't have two legs. They're never going to be able to go into the Olympics because you need to not be disabled, I think, to do the Olympics. But they can do the Paralympics
exactly.
because they can be the best that they can be,
Mm-hmm.
which
With one leg
is
or no leg, and still be
a
incredibly
really
good.
good runner who's got
Yeah,
one leg.
yeah. Um, but like here, the issue isn't that it's because the whole thing was you can be whatever you want to be. And Amethyst being like, well, no, I can't. I can't beat Jasper.
Can't be whatever I want to be if I can't be the sort of person who
Yeah.
wants to beat Jasper.
However, her mindset at the moment is Jasper is what I was supposed to be. I have yet to beat her, and I am not that. Ergo, I cannot beat her,
Yeah, and
which isn't right.
like maybe Amethyst would have been able to beat Jasper with um in mind games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's absolutely ways in which Amethyst can
Absolutely.
beat Jasper. We will get to them.
We will
Um,
indeed.
basically. Um, just not for a little bit. But yeah, it's like I don't know, but being supportive of someone and supporting them in their dream, um, but also, being aware of the reality. There might be like, yeah, okay, you're not going to be able to beat Jasper in this current
In in
state,
in this current state, and like when
or
Jasper is like
or
when because
and yeah,
Jasper was like purposefully um trying to make Amethyst feel worse and
yeah,
fight
like
worse.
Amethyst also is just like she does not do well again with because she's very easily manipulated. She's very easily manipulated. Um, and Jasper is an incredible soldier, not just physically. Um, she is actually surprisingly efficient uh,
Yeah,
at using mind games as well against Amethyst, but earlier against Garnet and Pearl, and against Steven. Um, she is quite the soldier. Um,
yeah.
and that is the issue. uh,
Amethyst would probably be able to beat Jasper, but the problem is that Amethyst is playing Jasper's game,
yeah,
and that is
Amethyst is
like pure strength.
Amethyst is thinking I need to beat her in a test of pure strength, which is not the game that Jasper's playing. um, because Jasper's been using tactics this whole time, whereas Amethyst's just kind of been charging her head first. Um,
Yeah,
that's part of what makes Jasper so dangerous because the gem monsters that that they come across right in Catch 'em No, well, the previous two episodes are
yeah,
super strong, but they are just brute force. They are just strength, and they can be easily taken down.
yeah.
Uh, that's not Jasper. Uh,
Exactly.
Granted, she is a peak conditioned gem, as we will find out again down the line. But she's also just using all of the cards in her hand, not just I'm gonna hit something with my head. Uh, and yeah, um,
Yeah, yeah. Um, Obviously, this is kind of a difficult topic.
mhm,
Uh, I'm not disabled.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not trying to sort of speak over disabled
No,
people
not
or
at
their
all.
experiences. So I hope I've been as positive as possible. That's sort of my
Same.
aim. But that's sort of the crux of Amethyst's
Mm-hmm.
insecurity.
Yeah.
And we get that there, and then Stephen says, like, now hold on a second, I do understand you.
Yeah.
And this is a good thing. I do understand you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone in your struggles, because there's also pressure on me to be something that I'm supposed to be. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's manifested in a different form.
Yeah.
It's not like self-inflicted self-esteem pressure. It's
No.
pressure from other people to be Rose Quartz.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he's not Rose Quartz, and he understands that now.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least for now.
For now, yeah. Rose quartz, sure.
That changes
Yeah.
a lot.
And that comes to, and that's the thing that we find on all of the kind of four main gems, really. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, to be fair, all the extended gems as well. You've got this pressure to, be Rose Quartz. You've got this pressure to always be, the one who knows what's going on and the powerful one for Garnet. Um, uh, Pearl's got, pressure as well. Kind of internalized a lot of it, but also because she knows things that
Yeah,
she's not said. Um, and then
exactly.
Lapis has this constant pressure from within herself to leave because she doesn't want to get caught up in another war, but also to stay because she wants to help her friends. Uh, Peridot's dealt with most of her pressure during season 2. Um, and
Mm.
that kind of bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And also it's a similar kind of arc to Amethyst in a sense with her not being able to shapeshift,
Exactly, yeah, we did
um,
have that.
which we get to. And a thing down the line, which we've not got to yet, is that it turns out she can't shapeshift, but you know, we haven't found. No, we have found out she's got
We
mental
have found
powers.
out the
Yeah,
mental
that was
powers.
all the same episode. Um, she just hasn't used them overly lots yet. Um, but yeah, it's also yeah. Well, I can't do this, but I can do this. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Um,
and that can be another really good thing to focus on.
Definitely.
No matter who you are. And yeah, and then Bismuth, wanted to help people and lost their way a bit, and we'll get to Bismuth stuff more when we deal with Bismuth, which will be next time.
Definitely. That is next time.
But yeah, everyone's putting pressure on themselves, and again, that's not just within this show. That's just in life. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't put pressure on themselves in some way. It's just, at least in part, how you handle that pressure and how you deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you let it control you, which is what Amethyst does for most of this episode, then it can become a real problem. Um, but if you get it out there and talk to people about it and that kind of stuff, then
Yeah.
it's usually less of an issue. It's why Greg is so laid back all the time. Um, because he doesn't let those pressures get to him. At least for the most part. We will get to some of that stuff, but um,
Sort of he has sorted a lot of his issues. He's
he's
an
he's
older
sorted a lot
guy.
of his problems. And the problems that he kind of has now are different.
They are
Um,
different. But he's a sort of a wiser character.
he's a surprisingly wise character for Greg.
For Greg.
Um, but
For
yeah,
a rock star who was homeless for a while,
yeah, but
and
the kind of the big thing that he's you know dealing with at this point is or was is with Pearl. Um,
yeah, he did for a long time.
and that's kind of the last big um pressure on him, I think, is that I ruined this person's relationship by getting involved and having my own relationship. Um, and it's only through like Mr. Greg, which we again talked about at length,
We did,
that
we
they,
did.
you know, both come to terms with that, and that it's, it's not up to either of them at the end of the day. It was up to Rose. Um, but yeah, after that, and also becoming a millionaire probably helped. Um, There's most of the pressures dealt with. And then you look at most of the townies; they've all got pressures as well.
Of course.
Uh,
Sour
um,
cream from
Sour
Yellow
Cream from
Dad.
Yellow Dad, and Sadie from her mum, and Buck from Bill. Uh, the sisters, we dealt with that as
We
well
did.
in Kiki's Delivery
Kiki's
Service,
pizza delivery
Pizza
service,
Delivery
yeah.
Service. Onions,
Onion's just
actually,
onion.
Onion even with his friends that we'll get to. Um, it's not exactly the same, but he's still got things going on, I suppose. Um,
Yeah,
so it's a thing that very few personal pressures that are inflicted on oneself is something that very few people escape.
of course, of course.
And yeah, that's kind of one of the big things about Future with Stephen as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll again get to that when we get to that. So
Speaking of Stephen, um,
indeed,
the thing here is he sort of slightly opens up a little bit.
he does.
Slightly. He doesn't open up very often.
Nope.
Um, which for a series about like opening up is funny. But obviously he opened up a lot in sort of Jailbreak
Mhm.
after that one.
Yep.
So like Full Disclosure and right, what was it called? The one where he hitches a ride in the cool kid's car
Yes, that one.
after
Mhm.
after Full Disclosure,
Yep.
and he talks to the cool kids about like
Yep.
his problems.
Mhm.
It's not often he does,
No.
but here he does. And he says, he's not Rose Quartz,
Mhm.
and that he's been working so hard because of that pressure to be Rose Quartz.
Exactly.
And that is unfortunate that he opens up just now because the next episode is Jasper. Not
Yep.
Jasper, Bismuth.
Yep. That's the one.
And a lot of things happen there.
A lot of Rose things
A
happen
lot of
there.
Rose related things happen there.
Mhm.
But obviously we won't be going into that this episode.
No, we'll deal with that next time.
But
To
some
round
of
out the
it is
episode,
undone, basically.
yeah, Pearl shows up. They've kind of screwed up the arena.
They have.
Uh, but
They've ruined the ruins.
I was gonna say they weren't exactly well put together anymore, anyway. But yeah, it's not great.
I do wish we had some aftermath. I want to see more of what happens after this.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But that is how the episode ends.
That is how the episode
Um,
ends.
and it's a really good episode.
It is a really fun one in
It's
ways.
like it's like the test and maximum capacity, and that like it might not be the funniest episode, but it's one of those ones that makes you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why I like it. So what about that checklist, huh?
Well, that checklist, traumatic events for Stephen or Greg? Not really.
I mean, it's probably the source of one of his like bone fractures, at least,
It probably is.
being slammed against the floor.
I certainly, but for right now, he seems alright with it.
He seems okay.
Um,
He delves
it's,
into his trauma, but he's not doesn't get trauma from
he's
this
not getting
episode,
trauma. And that
unless
is
we count being slammed into the ground,
yeah, which is physical trauma.
which is physical trauma. Maybe
So maybe, but this is not really what we're going for with the list. Obviously, Greg's not aware of any of this is happening. Otherwise, again, probably.
he would not be happy about that.
Train Shan does not appear, and Lars does also not appear.
Exactly. Was that our list?
So that's our list.
Oh dang, we haven't filled anything in on that for ages.
We haven't done anything for
We'll get Stephen Trauma in Bismuth. Don't worry.
Stephen Trauma in Bismuth, absolutely. Steven Universe list. Let me just chill on anything else. Lancelot's lesson. That's not gonna. Again, we'll get to some more of that in a little bit. But yeah, Stephen being scarred for life. Yeah, that's next time. Greg Trauma, we had some in Greg the Babysitter.
Yeah.
But that's the most recent one we got. Before that was Alone at Sea.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well,
we'll probably get the train at some point.
Train will definitely come up at least once or twice more, I think. Just a matter of when. But yeah, until then, that was Amethyst versus Stephen.
Stephen versus Amethyst.
Yep, I knew it was all the way around. So with that being said, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cabincast. For more episodes, go to www.cabincast.podbean.com or use the Podbean app. You can now also find us on iTunes and Pocket Casts under Cabincast and on YouTube. The uploads here are quite behind. Finally, you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Cabincast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.